there's a lot of stigma, sorry, Bear's asking for snuggles, but there's a lot of stigma or misunderstanding, especially among neurotypical people, regarding self-diagnosis. Now, what a lot of people think self-diagnosis is, oh, I read like a few symptoms and I kind of have it, so, oh, I'm gonna go around acting like I totes have this mental illness or disorder or whatever else. What it usually is, okay, I've had this problem for a long time and I'm trying to figure it out, trying to understand myself, doing all this fucking, and I've done a shit ton of research about a variety of things, and I think the best I can tell from all my research is that I have this. I think. That's usually what it is. And then they take that and then they go to the doctor and they say, okay, based on all of this and these symptoms and this, I think this is what I have. Because a lot of people think that, the only way you could ever get a mental health diagnosis is through psychiatrists, and that psychiatrists are infallible when it comes to diagnosis, even though misdiagnosis happens all the fucking time. In fact, in my experience, it's more common, like, not just with me, but like with people I know, it's more common than accurate diagnosis. Like, for example, we just take me. I am an autistic person with PTSD. I just have those two things, autism and PTSD. And yet, over the years, I've been diagnosed with social anxiety disorder, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, all this other stuff. And then as soon as you have, and then I've had psychiatrists disagree, saying, oh no, you don't have OCD, that was just because of your insomnia. And your insomnia is only because of your general anxiety. Like, so much of my autism symptoms were just being lopped into generalized anxiety disorder once I got that diagnosis. Because that's the thing too, is that after you get one diagnosis, regardless if it's correct or not, they start fitting your symptoms to fit a previous diagnosis, again, regardless if it's correct or not. And even things like the bipolar thing, it was rapid cycling bipolar 2. And what it actually was just that my autistic self, when I'm not depressed, was being misinterpreted as being manic, and then my PTSD was causing periods of depression. So that was being misinterpreted as being, bipolar disorder, and then the borderline personality disorder because of my sensitive emotions and whatever, my insecurities from, just all of the abuse and just having no friends all the time, which is a common thing with autistic people, just not having friends and crap like that, and just a bunch of stuff like that. And so it wasn't until I saw my most recent psychiatrist that he was actually starting to look at all the long list of bullshit medical history, and I was seeing him, I had like 6 different mental disorders, and he's like, okay, I don't think you have half of this shit, and also all this medication you're on, you don't need me on half of it. So he started reworking all my medication, and he's like, okay, oh yeah, ADHD is another one I got diagnosed, I forgot about that one. But yeah, so he started reworking everything, and he's like, okay, I don't think you have this, you're not bipolar, like, I don't think you have this, that, and the other thing, and whatever else, and then that allowed me to step back. And he was also the first person who said I had PTSD, because that's the thing too, is that, and these things, and I'm looking back to times I was talking to psychiatrists, and I was giving them textbook symptoms of both PTSD and autism, like, stuff I was describing was, like, I remember one time, when I got the GAD diagnosis especially, I remember one time I described to the letter cognitive dysfunction, and that's what got me the generalized anxiety diagnosis. And then, like, even I was having, like, meltdowns and shutdowns even, and they said, no, oh no, sometimes people with GAD have that, even though when I was looking up, and overstimulation and things like that, and when I was looking that up as an individual topic, I couldn't find anything about GAD. It was just, or no, when I was looking up GAD, I couldn't find anything about those symptoms. It was when I actually had to look up the individual topic, it's like, and then, like, a little footnote is sometimes present, and I think that's mostly the misdiagnosis crap. And then just, the fact that most women with autism end up with being misdiagnosed with borderline personality at some point or another, because, oh, that woman, it's kind of, not that, like, BPD isn't real, or that if you're a woman who has BPD, I'm not saying you're invalid or anything, but in some cases it has, like, the reason why that it's like 75% of those diagnosed are women, some people have called it, like, modern day hysteria, and if you know the history of that, it was like women could be diagnosed with hysteria for fucking anything, But yeah, it's just kind of like, oh, this woman's overly emotional, let's give her a BPD diagnosis kind of thing. So that's kind of, that ends up being a misdiagnosis a lot. So yeah, basically, psychiatrists are far from infallible, and a lot of time, the worst way to get a diagnosis is just giving a bunch of random symptoms, because then you'll end up with all these misdiagnoses. It wasn't until I just was like, okay, you know what, hold up. I know me better than anyone else. I'm not, like, besides, do you know what a psychiatrist does? It doesn't, they just say, how's your week? And then you just see them and how's your week? How the fuck are you supposed to figure anything out if you're just going by week basis, seeing them in whatever point in life that you started seeing them at? And they don't know what you're looking for, and you're just talking to them for like 20 minutes. How the fuck are you supposed to get an accurate diagnosis from that? So, but me, I can go back and go like, okay, well, here's a pattern I'm noticing in my own life, and here's this, and here's that, and also with like friends and family, they can tell, you're observing stuff. Like, for example, I'm convinced, I'm like 99.9% certain that my brother has narcissistic personality disorder. But no one in my family will take me seriously because I'm not a psychiatrist, and there's you should stay away from self-diagnosis and all this other crap. I've done a shit ton of research on narcissistic personality disorder because of my brother, and it fits him to a T. Like, they might as well be describing him and everything he does. But I can't approach him with that, and I can't be like, Luke, I think you should go see a psychiatrist about possibly seeing if you have narcissistic personality disorder. Because the thing is that a lot of times, psychiatrists prefer it when you go like, okay, I think I have this. Okay, here, take this test. Because, like, that's so much easier than I'm just like, okay. Well, after these patterns, I think maybe this is what you got. I don't know. Because, like, there's so many different mental illnesses, and no two people will have this. Like, you could have two people with the exact same mental illness, and it's going to be expressed very differently. Because no two people are identical, right? So it's a lot easier, because it's a lot better when you go to a psychiatrist with that, okay, this is what I think I have already, and then they can go, okay, why do you think you have this? And then they're like, oh, no, that's, they can either say, oh, no, don't worry about it, that's not what you have, or they can be like, oh, yeah, you have some, validity there. Because the thing is, too, is that, like, just because I didn't go to school, because I can't afford to go to school or anything like that, like, I've done, because all this information is available online, and I know, like, there's not everything's the most credible sites either, but like when I do this research, I fact check between sites, and I do a bunch of research, and I make sure that the sites I'm going to are as credible as possible. Because I've always, and also like I've just like throughout since I was a teenager, I've been really fascinated by psychology. So while I've never been to school, I don't have any credentials or anything. I'm not saying I could give a diagnosis. I'm just saying that I know what I'm talking about a little bit better than the average person. So I'm saying, like, don't discredit people just because they don't have a doctorate, because sometimes people with doctorates are fucking idiots. Like, my current psychiatrist, while he's great in a lot of areas, he thinks that you can't have ADHD as an adult, and if you have ADHD as an adult, you don't need your ADHD medication if you're not in school, because apparently that's the only reason an ADHD person would ever need to focus for anything. And another one who didn't understand why someone that she had diagnosed as bipolar would end up like be doing really well sometimes and then be doing really badly sometimes, like, and would get actually angry when someone went off the medication when they started feeling suicidal. Like, isn't that what you're supposed to do? Like, psychiatrists are not infallible. In fact, and I have heard so many way worse stories than that. Like, yeah, and psychiatrists get shit wrong, and because the things that they think that they know everything, and that they are infallible. So me, I recognize how fallible and stuff, and I fact check constantly, and not to mention things are constantly updating, and however long ago they went to fucking psychology school, a bunch of shit's changed since then. Like, I've had psychiatrists, talking about Asperger's to nowadays. Fucking Asperger's hasn't been an official term in like 3 years. And other such things like that have been, because shit's constantly getting updated, because, constantly figuring out new stuff, because the mind is a big mysterious thing that we don't fully understand. How psychiatric medication, most of that shit is like, oh, here's some chemicals, oh, it does this in some people, let's start treating it, like on a medication that was originally used as a diet pill. And then they found out it's good for migraines, and then they also found out it was good for sleeping, and then they also realized it was good for mood stabilization. So now it's a psychiatric drug, but it was originally for, now it's classified as a mood stabilizer, but like it went through like all these steps of not being a mood stabilizer, because they don't understand how psychiatric drugs work. It's just kind of like, oh, this also does this. It's cool. Let's run with that shit, man. So, yeah, like, it's weird and complicated, and, you know, question that shit. Do your own research. Don't, take everything with a grain of salt. When you get a new diagnosis, research the fuck out of it, and try to figure yourself out, and then go to a doctor with it. And, who knows, you might get a better diagnosis and not end up wasting, like, 7 years of misdiagnoses like I ended up doing. Thanks for watching.